I did.
Oh boy, another day, another meeting, huh?
Yeah,
So there. You're gonna be Spalding?
sure.
He's on the, Matt is on the committee. I guess his daughter's got
His daughter is sick.
got 106 degree
106 fever.
temperature.
Wow.
You can be,
Yeah, do you want to just, do you want to do an impersonation?
I don't want to get in trouble.
We have,
all right, let's go ahead. We're
we
gonna
have a
call our,
quorum anyway. Yeah.
we're gonna call our meeting to order. It's December 12th, 2022, 5:30. This is the Personnel Committee meeting. And the first thing is our residency in teacher education, the RIGHT program. Take it away.
All right. The RIGHT program, just like Stacy said, is an acronym for the Residency and Teacher Education Program. It is a program through CESA 6 in Oshkosh. And typically, this program is used by a person who has a bachelor's degree and wants to be a special education teacher. And we know how hard it is to find special education teachers. So this tuition assistance agreement is a situation where when somebody enrolls in the RIGHT program, RITE, RIGHT program, they can enroll either in the year program or the 2-year program. Of course, the year program is more intensive. The year 2 program gives them a little bit more time to complete the program. I've seen people enroll in sometimes the first 1-year program or 2-year program. But a lot of times when a special education teacher is new to the profession, new to special education, it's wise for them to enroll in the 2-year program and spread out the workload. So this tuition assistance agreement is a situation where if we have a teacher, a person with a bachelor's degree wanting to be a special education teacher, we can interview that person, reference check that person, and decide whether that's an individual that we would want to employ in the Manitowoc Public School District and help assist them with their tuition. If we decide to move in that direction and assist them with their tuition, they enroll in the RIGHT program. We then would pay their tuition, and it's about $9,600 or $9,700 for the full program right now, so up to $10,000. And what we would do then is enter into this agreement upon which, if upon the district helping subsidize their ability to get their license through the RIGHT program, their license and certification for special education, the district subsidizes and helps them out with that tuition assistance. But in lieu of that, the individual has to stay and be employed with us for 5 years in order to not have to pay the district back any money. So if indeed the person comes in, we hire them, they enroll, and they leave after 1 year, they would owe us 80% of the tuition. After 2 years, 60%, 3 years, 40%, 2 years, 20%, and after 5, they would not owe us anything. The other thing is that if indeed there happens to be a situation where they don't follow through with the RIGHT program, or they, for some reason, don't follow through with their licensure, then this whole thing becomes null and void in that situation. So this is an opportunity for us to gain a special education teacher or 2, depending on the circumstances, help them with their assistance, and hopefully keep them in the district for at least 5 years or longer. And so, with that being said, any questions, thoughts?
No, is the program through UW Oshkosh?
Yes. No, CISA 6. CISA 6.
Oh, CISA 6, okay.
Yeah, CISA 6. Yeah. CISA 1 also has a fairly similar program, but of course CISA 1 is way down east part of the state. So this would be the program that we would want to participate with.
Okay. Yeah, it seems like it's a better deal for us than paying $5,000 bonus for signing.
So I would look for a motion
Yeah,
to
I'll move that
adopt this
we adopt this.
tuition assistant
Yeah.
agreement, and I'll second that.
I have a question. Have we been doing this in the past? Because I know some previous employees that got a special ed certification this way. I don't know if it was this program, or what was the past program we used?
Well, to my knowledge, the district had some ESSER funds, and the district then provided tuition assistance for 1 or 2 special education teachers in the district. The difference is that this assistance agreement holds them accountable to be employed by us for up to 5 years before they would not have to pay the district back any money.
So could you clarify if the one that we were in previously didn't have those stipulations? That's because I think that's probably, because this sounds like a lot better of agreement, because I believe there's been a special ed teacher that was only here a year and a half, and then they moved on. And this would incentivize them to stay in the district. Is that what we weren't doing before?
That's correct. We were not doing that before.
Yep, makes sense.
You know, point number 4, no guarantee of employment. Nothing in this agreement constitutes a commitment or guarantee on the part of the Manitowoc Public School District to provide employment to the employee for any specific period of time or duration. Seems to me that this is a mutual contract, isn't it?
I wouldn't say it's a contract, Carrie, but it's definitely it's definitely a binding agreement. And we just don't want this to be misconstrued as to be, if they sign this, they've got a contract for 5 years or something of that nature. Because
so this, yeah, if they don't work out and we let them go, then do they still have to pay, 60%?
That's a good question, Carrie. I would have to read that, but I think if we've vetted somebody, I would hope that we wouldn't have a situation that after a year or 2 where we've invested substantial money and then we decide that person is not a good fit. I would hope that we would have vetted that situation much better than that.
Yeah,
and
right.
get into those circumstances.
Mike, I'm wondering if we can do like we do. I remember in one of the superintendent contracts that we had, I think it was with our previous superintendent, we had something in there about like if they got out of their contract, they'd owe us $10,000 if they left early.
That's right. Yeah,
Or
that's right.
Or the board could agree to waive it.
Yeah.
So I'm wondering if we have something in that agreement like that says that we have the right to waive that under circumstances if we decide to.
Correct. I think Stacy, that even with teacher contracts, we have where if they leave us by June 15th, there's a $500 penalty. August 1st is like $1,000 or $750, and then after the start of school year is $1,000. We can waive that anytime, and there isn't any language that says we can waive it, but we can waive it. That's a prerogative we have as a district. Same thing with this.
So point number 4 is just sort of a safety net statement.
Yeah,
Yeah.
Saying if we have to wait.
it's a safety net, just indicating that this is not a contract of employment. This is a tuition assistance agreement, and there's no confusion. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we have a motion and a second to move that to the full board. And I believe we're going to do that tomorrow, correct?
No, we're gonna do all this stuff
January
10th. Yes.
Okay.
Okay,
Okay. All right. So that's we'd like to recommend that then to the full board.
I guess if we have a mover and a seconder, that constitutes a vote.
Right. Yep. And then yeah. Okay.
All right.
So our next item is the new clerical support staff position in the business office. And we were given several documents to review with that. And
Sure. A lot of
Mike
stuff,
Mike and
yeah.
Angela, would you like to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah,
And I'll tell you what, I'm gonna defer to Angela.
I would too, but
Well, yes, so the information was attached in board book regarding the addition of the business office clerical position, and just this conversations regarding the need to address staffing in the business office started about 1.5 years ago, because with the growing open enrollment, was just hard to have in one position both the title bookkeeper, open enrollment, accounts payable. And so that kind of started the conversation out. At that time, we just kind of left it, and we were exploring if there were other places that we could sort of shift that open enrollment to, but that didn't happen at the time. But it kept on, it just continued to exist as a concern. And then we had additional responsibilities we had taken on with the foundation. And so that was in the spring of 2022. And so the conversation had come up again. And in the mix with all of it too, like I had just general concerns regarding separation of duties with positions, and some of that with breakdown of the position was addressed. Currently the person that pays accounts payable, she enters invoices, enters vendors, enters, pushes the, creates all the checks, makes the payment of vouchers for the board. That's a lot of, that person, there's no concern with what any of the work from that person, but that just generally is not a safe way to build a position with the management of money just from a governance standpoint. So knowing that we had to address several of these needs, we went through, and I just had an independent auditor look at our accounts in this, or our positions in the proposal, and then also our auditor look at the suggestion and for how we wanted to build this additional position. So we took many of their suggestions and incorporated them and shifted things around to work better overall.
Excellent.
And then go ahead.
No, go ahead. I just said excellent.
yeah.
Oh, and then with the foundation, just as a reminder, the foundation is willing to fund $2,500 a month for this position, which would bring in $30,000 to fund the position. And the balance of the position funding would be a little bit in wages, depending upon where we bring the person in. It would be a clerical 1 position along with any benefits. So that could be, close to an additional $40,000 on the end of the district. Because we've been trying to work through this process and adding the position, it is built into the budget already for this fiscal year. So it is, because I know that will be a question. It was already planned within the budget, but we weren't going to move forward with it unless it was, of course, approved. So we've taken care of the planning portion.
So, Angela, the document indicates that you're looking for a half-time position. You were looking spring of 21, but this request is for a full-time position.
Correct. And I also forgot to mention in there, so like the halftime amount would be for the foundation work, and like the title position that used to exist in the business office years ago was a halftime position that was lost. The work shifts with anything in the business office, where like some points during the year it would be a halftime, half of the time, but then the work of the foundation is really held by another person. So what we're doing is sort of fixing the separation of duties to create this position. So it is full time.
So does the source of the funds affect the definition of the job? I mean, this would be a full-time position with benefits, pension, et cetera, right?
Correct, yes,
Okay, all right, and health insurance.
correct, yes.
Okay, all right, yeah, because,
And my understanding too, Angela, is this person is already working for us. We're just increasing their hours to a full-time
Oh,
position. Is that correct?
Actually, no. So Joyce Stuckman currently is the lead purchaser and she does the foundation work, but we would be shifting responsibilities off of her plate in order for her to, because she's been working a lot of overtime. So,
Oh, okay.
$9,000.
mhm,
Angela, are we also moving some duties from
mhm.
relative to building and grounds?
Correct. That is other,
Yeah,
and I
right.
forgot to mention that. Yeah, so typically in a district, and Mike and Jim can talk to this too. Your executive assistant to a superintendent does not also manage and support another department. So the thought was that, you know, in building this job and in looking at the positions in the business office and the central office as a whole, that we could absorb in creating this position, absorb those duties to support buildings and grounds.
So Lori would no
Yeah.
longer do that.
Yeah.
We start to think. she's
Correct.
My assistant, she's really the administrative assistant to the board,
Yeah.
that's why it's me.
Yeah,
Mhm.
This is unusual to have and Lori would say it doesn't take much, it takes time.
yeah.
Well, and I just, so I guess, Jim, what I would ask is, does this fall in line with kind of what you're seeing as far as reorganization goes?
Well, there's obviously more to discuss. We've got, 2 assistants that have given notice, and so we've got a week left with them. Which requires some immediate action.
Mhm.
And yet at the same time, we're looking at a restructuring. I've got Jamie coming in now, how will our positions evolve? My interest is not to incur more costs. If we do incur more costs, it would be more at the building level, in terms of where I'd like to have more support. But it's always about getting the work done though, too. We're looking at some different configurations, even though I'd like to kind of roll it out together in January.
Sure.
But we are discussing this even today, where we're reviewing,
And this,
because
fits-
it has implications.
Yeah. but this fits in, this
It
isn't
does.
something coming
No.
pie out of the sky
Yeah,
from
yeah, no,
somewhere else.
no.
that- Okay.
Mhm.
And most definitely, the reference to Lori, there is things we need to review our positions relative to the
Okay.
work and the size of the schools, what we're attempting to accomplish.
Okay. Well, I'd be looking for a motion
Yeah, I'll make
to,
the motion to
okay, and I will second
approve
that.
this. Yeah, it seems, you're looking for a pretty well qualified person. I'd like to, what kind of hour, and it's an hourly rate wage, what kind of, associate degree with experience, minimum of 3 years experience, some pretty diverse skills
Mhm.
as well. What kind of hourly rate would this person be paid?
Is that a classification 1 or 2, Angela?
A 1.
A 1? So that would have a starting wage of about 17-14 and a top
Okay.
wage of about 23-37, Carrie.
Okay, thanks.
The only thing I want to say is during this transitional period, we want to highlight the responsibilities that fall off of our plates financially, because we're going to be in a position of acquiring more costs in the short term. However, we need to be diligent about highlighting, if we can, eliminate costs at the same time. Because I understand during this restructuring, we're going to need to have positions available to fulfill, so that would incur more cost. But we need to be responsible going forward to see the responsibilities that are coming off and transparently explain that to the community simultaneously as we're incurring more costs.
This saves a lot on overtime.
I understand that,
Yeah,
but
Mhm.
what I'm explaining is a bigger picture, not
sure, I know what you're saying.
And I think the hard part too, that's often challenging with positions like this is that, and we've thought long and hard in assembling this and evaluating this, is that regardless of our enrollment, there's a certain level of work that just has to get done. You know what I mean? So the processing itself of our financial stuff doesn't stop, even though there are some other factors that shift. So.
Yeah.
Okay, well, we will make a recommendation to the board to include a new clerical support staff position in the business office.
Okay,
Thank you.
all right.
Okay, and so our next, we have another request for a new special education paraprofessional position at Jefferson Elementary. And we do have the principal of Jefferson here with us, Courtney, who's put together a lot of great documents for us, so I appreciate that. And Courtney, why don't you just give us a little insight on what's going on at Jefferson?
Yeah, so starting last spring, we added an EBDS, that's EBD Severe Programming, here at Jefferson as the South Side location. And knowing kind of where we're at with our current staffing, we have 5.5 special education aides allotted here at Jefferson. 4 of those are specifically with students in a one-on-one situation, which leaves us 1.5 to support all of the other kiddos. So knowing, and we, in addition to that, we had 8 additional students that moved into our attendance area with some IEP needs since staffing occurred last spring. So we're running into, in this EBDS programming, some challenges with behaviors with students. And I've noted some of the significant things in the document for you, so you can read some of those bullet points there. But the biggest thing is safety for both staff and students in this particular situation, but really also the disruption to the overall learning environment in the building when students become dysregulated and are moving throughout the building.
Courtney, just you know, to humor me on this, you know, I'm always irritated by the acronyms without any kind of, you know, specific description. I don't know what an EBD-S is.
Emotional.
Yeah.
Emotionally disturbed,
Emotional behavior.
emotional behavior disturbed students.
Specialists. I believe,
Specialists,
right?
okay.
No, the S stands
I
for.
mean, I got from the text, of course,
Yeah.
that this is pretty exotic behavior from some of these students, but
Yeah.
I just, you know, I haven't been on the board long enough to pick that stuff up.
Yeah, so EBD is emotional behavioral, students that have identified a need in those areas, and the S at the end. So we have students that are in our EBD programming that are able to be in regular education classrooms for the vast majority of their day. They might receive some social skills instruction from our special education staff. They might also receive a little extra support in math or reading or writing. These are students that are in a self-contained classroom setting for the most part. We do have one student in that particular program right now that's working with a blended schedule that's in our EBDS program for part of the day, but also we've identified some places where he's able to be successful in the classroom, in his regular education classroom, and he does have access to that space as well.
Yeah, okay, that's cool.
Courtney, the program that we have, and I always forget its name, that is out at Stangl.
MCCP. Yep.
Yes. Is that, how would, are the kids at your school at that level?
That's a hard question for me to answer, Stacy, because I have not actually been in that space with those students.
Okay.
My understanding though is that you would have EBD support programming where students are for the most part in their regular education classrooms throughout the day is kind of the lowest level. Then you have this EBDS programming where they're still able to remain in their home school, have access to their peers, and then we would send students to that MCCP programming.
I see. Okay. So
Courtney,
this is,
just
so this is a tier below that, it sounds like.
Correct.
Okay.
just explain to me the statement that from 9/22 to 12/22, we were having to clear the EBDS room of all furniture at least 3 times per week at minimum? What's happening?
Yeah, so if you can imagine that classroom, there's 4 student tables in that classroom, student chairs. There's a teacher table, there's a cart that's on some wheels. When some of the students were becoming escalated, things that are on the cart, the tables themselves, the chairs themselves become projectile. And so in order to protect the safety of the students and also the adults, we were physically moving all belongings out of that room. So essentially it was an empty classroom space where there was nothing that they could hurt themselves with or hurt anyone else with.
God, so why are public schools responsible for that? I mean, I don't even think that's appropriate, is it?
If you look at special education, there's this term called least restrictive environment, least restrictive learning setting, and an IEP team, individual education plan team, determines what that setting is going to look like, the least restrictive learning environment. And as Courtney described, you have your regular EBD setting, you have the self-contained setting, and then you have one more setting where the least restrictive environment isn't even in the building any longer. It's in an alternative setting. So it all comes down to a lot of legal things. It is where I'm trying to go with this. It all comes down to a lot of legal things in special education upon which we have to, of course, abide by and be in compliance.
With what? With the law?
Yeah,
With the
I mean,
law.
this is
Correct.
just, I mean, I just find this appallingly inappropriate in an educational context. You know,
Yeah, I
when especially when rocks from the landscaping are being thrown at staff, vehicles in our parking lot, and building windows. I mean, come on, you know, that would normally be a crime.
So I have a question for you, Courtney. This is
Yes.
Jamie. How are you?
Good. How are you, Jamie?
Good. Are any of these students being looked at for an IEP for a more restrictive placement?
So all of these students currently have an IEP. We have one student right now that we are awaiting MCCP to come over and do an evaluation to help determine if that environment would be a better fit for that student or not.
So if that student were to be moved, would that reduce the need for an additional FTE?
Absolutely not. No. One of the steps that we are taking here over the Christmas holiday would be that there's a classroom next door. So right now we have joining classrooms. The EBD classroom and the EBDS classroom are connected through a door, mostly for quick access of support to both classroom spaces if needed. We're moving our EBD classroom upstairs to a vacant space in our building. And so now that it will give us EBDS, we'll have both classrooms. We're hoping that having a space where children can move and we can have staff working with students in both spaces will help eliminate some of what we're seeing because the space they're in is fairly small and you have 5 students that when one becomes dysregulated, you have another one that will follow behaviors. So you're very much talking about an environment that lacks the ability to self-regulate often and strong leadership and seeing like that behavior is not right and I shouldn't follow that isn't happening. So it's very much a safety concern that we should always have the teacher plus an additional staff member in that space. And right now in our building, we are not able to provide that at all times. And so oftentimes it's a paraprofessional that is left alone in that space or the classroom teacher herself. And it's just not, it's a recipe for disaster.
So is one FTE enough?
I mean, that's what I'm asking for today. But if you want my honest answer, Carrie, absolutely no, it's not. It's not. But I'm asking for one today.
Yeah, I'm sorry that, you know, we have to do this. I mean,
Courtney, I'm just doing my due diligence here. Did you get a dean of students in the last 2 years? Position?
We do have a dean of students position. She currently is busy all day long working with students in our regular education environment and taking calls to support in those classroom spaces.
So she hasn't been able to help in this at all, or?
She absolutely can help, but Matt, I will tell you, there's far more than any one person can do in a day.
So who applies for jobs like this?
So Carrie, I
this
think
is-
what, yeah, without going into too much detail here, because it would get into specific positions and people in my building, and I don't want to talk about that specifically.
Okay.
Well-
I think what we would do is possibly some movement and look at the talents that we have in our building, and then hire for something that would be a little less,
Okay, good idea. Yeah.
a little less strenuous.
And the other thing, Carrie, in order to answer that question a little bit, is there are all kinds of people out in America. What I'm trying to say here is that
I know.
every job has somebody that's a fit for that job. And whether it's primary in the elementary, upper elementary, middle school, high school, science, tech ed, whatever the job, there's always these individuals that are a pretty good fit. And there are people, there's people that just really thrive on working with special education students because they just love and adore those kids and they want to help those kids. So thank goodness that we have diversity in our workforce and people want to help people in different ways.
Yep. And I would say that's true, Mike, to the individual that we have that works in that space right now is wonderful. And I don't think that when we hired her that she had any thought that that was where she was going to thrive, and she loves it. And this year we even asked if she could be in that space all day long. So that's great.
Courtney, are these students from your attendance area, or is it because our programming at Jefferson?
It is a mix. We have students that are not from our attendance area as well as from our attendance area.
However, Courtney, those 8 new students were from out of district. Do I have that correct?
The 8 additional students that were added were from out of district.
Wow.
Did you hear that one? The eight students that are from out of district,
Okay.
the new ones.
I moved that we absolutely recommended the board. Disappointment.
I would like to add just, to plant in the back of your mind some of the challenges here. And when we talk about revenue, you have to recognize when we're talking about special education cost.
Yeah, the state only
fund
reimburses us.
a certain amount.
nothing.
And so this also then, not only takes more resources,
Right.
it takes generate resources, away too. So it's some real challenges here,
Yeah, right.
where it causes us to revisit the revenue issue here relative to our total programming needs and how much special education is part of that additional cost where the state and the federal government aren't meeting their original promises.
In addition, I'd like to add to that is that when you get students from out of district, as what's happened here, as what happened at Madison, Angela can apply for what's called a transfer of service. And there's Angela. If she wants to, do you want to add to that a little bit, Angela, so they understand what that transfer of service is under these circumstances?
Yes, no, you're spot on, Mike. So every student, when we have students move in from other municipalities, and become our students, and they have high levels of needs, we can get aid, and the next year we can apply for that if the board is comfortable applying for it. And it really goes by, it's hard to explain, but if you have 10 new students and a new aide, and 8 of them were for out of district, you would take that new staff member's cost divided by 10, and then, the 8 students worth could be claimed for extra revenue, and that would be permanently built into the revenue limit.
Oh, that's good.
But last thing I'll say about this is that I'm in 100% support of having the correct person in the classroom aiding the position that's needed. However, it can't just be anybody. We have to really start narrowing our focus. And if the funding's not there, we can make adjustments or we can do something we have to find the correct person to fill that need. Just like, our HR just told us, there's a certain person that's probably well qualified that can do this position. Instead of just hiring a body, we need to hire the right person, and we can't just be so apt to hiring the first person that applies. So moving forward, we kind of have to be, because what I'm hearing is we need more people. We need more people. I understand we need more people. However, we need the right people.
Yeah.
So we need to attract the right people. And it's a hard job, but working together and taking our time a little bit. And if it's a pay issue, that negotiation or that talk should come back to the board so that we get the right person. Otherwise, we just keep on creating more positions and our budget keeps going up and our kids don't get served. So that's what I'm just concerned about. But I'm 100% for this. It's just we have to find the right person.
Yeah.
All right, well, there's a motion and a second. I'll make that second for us to bring this to the board in January, right?
Correct.
Okay,
Yeah, thank you, Courtney. This is,
Thank you very much.
you're welcome, Courtney. Thanks for coming.
Thank you, Courtney.
wow, this is,
Okay,
is there a combat pay thing with this?
well, we can't talk about this now, but we're gonna
Yeah,
have
we
to
can.
sometime. This is a bigger issue that we have got to
I
talk
mean, the
about.
fact that we get less reimbursement for special ed too is,
Well, that
It's a
too,
political-
though, but
it's a political thing. Needs to be.
how we service kids and where we service kids and how long
Yeah,
we
yeah,
service
yeah,
kids,
yeah.
I think we need to talk about too.
That's true. Yeah.
Okay, so our district calendar, we have a draft of that calendar that Mike would like us to bring to the board
Yeah.
for approval. And there's the talking points are there on kind of what changes were made, different things. Mike, what would you like to say? Anything further about that?
I guess what I'd like to say is that consistent with past years, we have 185.5 teacher contract days. I just want to make sure we're consistent with the past. 175 student contact days, so we're good there. We have the transition day that I think that has just been implemented in the last year or two. The
Yes.
transition day for kindergarten, 6th grade, 9th grade, and new students, August 31st. And I called DPI to make sure that we could have that day, August 31st, because according to the law, Wisconsin statute, you can't start school before September 1. And they said because it's a non-instructional half day, that was okay. That was good. The other thing that came out in this calendar that each semester has 87.5 days. I mean, that's unheard of that the semesters would be perfectly equal. 9 staff development days, same as this the current year we're in. Lincoln High School graduation, Friday, June 7th, fits right into the calendar historically as it has in the past. We have one inclement weather day. And so hopefully we won't need it. Let's be optimistic. But if we do, we do. And if we go into day 2 or day 3, then the Board of Education superintendent determine whether we're making it up or not based on whether we have enough hours and minutes and where we're sitting with that stuff. We will have the first student day, the first student contact day will be the Tuesday after Labor Day because September 1 is the Friday before Labor Day weekend. So we really didn't want to start on September 1, the Friday. That just didn't make sense. One day and then out for 3. Traditional spring break last week of March, one whole week. And we have a winter break, December 22 through January 1. So all in all, I think the calendar turned out pretty well. And just for your information, we met with Jim, Angela, Katie Eichmann, myself, Michelle and Dean from the MEA. I think Stacy and I had chatted about it a little bit because Stacy made a great recommendation. And so there were, this isn't just a Mike Null product. This was a number of people. As I say, all of us are smarter than one of us, and everybody came together and had great ideas. And I think we have a pretty decent working calendar. So Any questions, any thoughts on it?
No, look good. Well crafted with that.
Jamie, one of the questions I had was, when I first got on the board, especially with the COVID money we had, we increased our PD days. And I don't believe that that has changed since. And so I just wanted to make sure that you had looked at this and, as far as student days versus person or professional development days, does everything look okay with what kind of you got in mind with us for next year? I know I'm
It
putting you on
seems
the
like,
spot.
yeah, it seems like a lot of professional development days to me.
Yeah.
But if that's built into their contract, it's certainly an opportunity for us, as long as we don't have to pay additional costs for those PD days. But it sounds like it's already built into their contract, so.
I don't,
I don't know if it's in the contract.
go ahead, Mike.
Yeah, that's correct. The PD days, the teach, we have 185.5 teacher contract days, and the nine staff development days are a part of that 185.5. So it is built in, that is part of their contracted days.
But they have to be. I'll just springboard off of Stacy's comment. I mean, obviously, parents and community members have not been quite happy with the kids having off more days, and that feeling of them not getting educated as much has been there. So like, that's the elephant in the room. So if we could work on our transparency, or if we could eliminate some, I mean, I understand that you just said it's an advantage. However, the community members aren't seeing it an advantage for their children. So we need to change that tempo, or we need to get rid of them, because it's not helping our image at all.
Well, it's another area where there's no key performance indicator
Yes,
that we can say to the public that
objective measurable.
This is what we get for it.
What's the return on that cost
yeah,
versus
the
a different
professional
cost?
development that we gave was directly going into
Our children.
So what we have is, we have Jamie obviously on for a week. I think she recognized that this more than she's used to seeing potentially, if I'm registering that correctly.
9 days is a lot.
A lot.
Thank you.
So
Yeah.
that was what she led with, again, we're trying to because we clearly recognize we got a reading crisis, right? We need to address.
right. And
things.
when we were
We're
coming,
looking
the
at
reason
summer
why
school,
I was,
preschool, all
the reason
this.
why I had brought it up when we did that and spent the money in that way is because I was concerned that coming out of COVID, we needed more student days. But we
Yeah, I
were
remember that being the
actually,
issue. And then they came up with a calendar, which I think they got every Friday off.
right.
Which
And
is
Every Friday off a month.
terrible in my opinion.
Every
Yeah.
student got Friday off?
Well, that was a calendar that didn't pass.
Oh.
But it was
okay.
proposed kind of seriously because, well, gee, everybody's been under a lot of stress.
But I think
So, well, let's
Matt
go
is
4
right. I mean,
weeks.
I think that we need to, and I think we get mixed reviews on professional development. But again, I think everything
Yeah.
needs to be tied to, the board has no idea what the professional development is.
Yeah, I'd like to know.
It's
And
not coming from, I'm a representative of the people, and I'm saying that parents, it's become cumbersome for the parents to see the worth of the objective results, the return on the investment for the parents when their kids aren't in school on a Friday. And then what precedent is this teaching our
Yeah.
children that we work 4-day work weeks? Like, not right. So that's where I hope we've looked at that, and I'm looking at it right now. And 9, which Jamie just said is a lot. Let's, I know I don't want to step in, but I'm just saying, it's been something that we have to address.
Right.
Can I jump in here, please?
yes,
Of the 9, 5 of them are before the school year even starts.
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
Yeah,
That's right.
One is on the 22nd of December, Stacy, where you made that wise move. So that's
Yeah.
6. So technically we have 3 during the school year. Just so we have all that in perspective as we're
That's
discussing this.
good. And I think, the reason why I didn't, because this is one of those situations where we put this in for COVID and it never goes away. But when I see if we're gonna roll out, some new programming, regardless of what it is, we're gonna need those professional development days before school starts. So I'm a supporter of the schedule. I just want to reiterate, and I'm glad Matt said it the way he did, and Carrie agrees too, that I just want, again, once we have our strategic plan, I want everything to be connected so that we can all feel like absolutely we put that in place because it's going to do this. Because I have teachers even now that will come up to me and say, oh, why don't you come meet with us on our professional development day? Right? Because they're not finding some of the things. I'm not saying all of them, but some of the things, so again, I think we owe it to our teachers. I think we owe, they rather be grading in their classroom, right? Because they're busy. So yeah, I think it's just, let's make sure that we're looking at it and that all is connected, because I think it's going to benefit everybody.
Yeah, I guess I was looking at like having no kids in the classrooms on Fridays. Okay, so September there's one, October there's one, November there's two.
No, there's not one in September. There's not one in September. There's one in
Yeah, it's the
October.
first day of school. I'm sorry.
Then
September.
there's one in December, but it's on the 22nd.
Yep, and then the 29th, obviously, because
Yeah.
vacation. And then
January, there's one on a Monday.
February there's one, obviously, and then March there's two because there's one.
No,
Sorry.
there's one.
Yep. So I'm just trying to address it. I don't want to put it on a pin and say, hey, we have to fix it 100%. I'm just saying, like, we have to get back to full work weeks, because it's a culture thing. Is what we're trying to achieve, that our children are being prepared for the real world. And if we're teaching our children to work 4 days a week, we're going to get 4 days a week out of work. But that's all I'm trying to say.
Yeah, it's a much more pragmatic sort of bitch too. I mean, I've got neighbors that have kids in school, and they work. So it's just not convenient at all for working mothers, working fathers, and it's not that we're supposed to be the babysitters, but it's not a bad idea to not piss off the people that are paying the taxes.
I can give you another special ed needs. Okay, so
Yeah.
IEP children, when they are not in school for a consistent routine, they have huger problems. So I've had many parents that are from IEP students.
Sure.
They lose their routine when they're not in
Sure.
school. So when they have a day off on a Friday, they don't know how to cope with that structure, because what we're doing is we're providing routine for the children.
Yeah.
We don't like it, but we need it.
I think, I'm going to vote for this proposed calendar. And I think the discussion of this topic, the professional development topic, I think we need to really look at professional development in a serious way. And not just sort of have an extra day to.
Because I think the teachers that I've talked to, they want it to be valuable too. They want to learn something, and so again, it's not, I don't think any of us are bucking the professional development, but let's not go one more school year and not feel like we know what's going to be going on. Let's add that into our strategic plan to make sure that we have those things, and we can definitely show that because we've done this, this is how it's impacted our students.
It might be a transparency thing. That's what I'm saying.
It might be a what?
If we could just
Transparency.
improve the transparency to our parents, that we can show a return on our investment of our teachers. It's not just professional development, but it's the structure as well.
Mhm.
So,
Right.
but that's what we need to get buy-in for.
Right.
And we have to, in so many different areas, assess the return on investment, anything we're doing. One thing Jamie and I have talked about is the lack of systems in our system.
Mhm.
That we have many things that aren't connected, that aren't leveraged. And so there's a savings there, to the extent of efficiency and that return that can lead to opportunities. But I would have to tell you, we have so many areas that really are lacking.
Right. And
That brings us, it starts
Right.
with then evaluating that return. You know, without a system, you're spending more.
Right, and I think that, I think as we get more and more systematic, right? Because I mean, again, I don't know, but, you know, with our reorganization, we may not know what our professional development is even going to be next year. And to me, I think we should know, right? Year one, year two, when we roll this out, what's on the horizon of what are our issues, and we're building in this kind of you know, so.
Let me, you know, even provide another example. I mean, we don't have a curriculum review cycle schedule.
Correct,
I mean,
right.
and that just tells you that it's not that you're going by in your senior pants, but you wonder without a system in place that
Right.
says you're gonna, you know, where you've kind of scheduled, you know, how these things have to be addressed.
And I think, you know I've heard people talk before, you know, we want to be proactive, not reactive, right? And I think a lot of, you know, since I've been on the board, a lot of our decisions have been reactive PD based on behavior, but has it really addressed the issue? No. So it may be.
And
a
it doesn't
component.
need, but are we addressing the need in the right way?
Correct.
I mean, again, it's that return on investment. And sometimes I think we might even be part of the problem with identifying a theory
Right.
and not necessarily seeing, you know, that we put something in place and are evaluating the return.
Can I write
When
that
I
down,
was-
that sometimes you're the problem? Is that what you just said?
When I was saying it was a lot, I was looking at it as opportunity because
Right.
I didn't want to pay additional money to have people come in for professional development. So I was excited to see that it was built into a calendar.
Yes.
More excited to see it's front loaded. I do understand the issue of not having children in school. You know, especially 175 student days in time. I think we need to move those up, but I don't know what the cost of that is.
Right.
Not to go on my soapbox, but I've had complaints of paraprofessionals as well, that they don't get paid on those days. So it's hard for them.
Oh, yeah.
It's a whole nother side of it, that we're paying for teachers to, but the paras, they can't have, I mean, they have the health insurance, but they're not getting that hourly wage those days either. So they would prefer to have more working days, because sometimes they don't get very many weeks during the holidays. They don't get the week. So and where do we need the need? We need a good base, but we need the supplemental help too. So it's a big problem, and that's why I'm trying to we got to talk about it. I don't want to make meetings
Yeah.
longer, but we got to do stuff about it. We gotta-
I would also share another thing, Mike, and you might help out with this. The other thing that I picked up was there was a clear acknowledgement that teachers get stressed out after a significant period of time without a break.
Mhm.
Now that might be because of our systems that we have in place. It might be because we got too much on their plate.
Mhm.
I only say that, you know, to the extent that listening to the teachers,
Well, what's interesting though.
you
is-
heard that, where you were part of it.
Right, but what's interesting about that is last year, they proposed a schedule that they would get every other Friday off, but they would have had to go later into the summer, and they didn't want it.
Not when it comes down to.
And it was, the administration had come together with this because they wanted more emotional support for our teachers, and the teachers didn't want it.
Because, and down the bottom,
They'd
like
rather,
summers
yeah, they'd
off
rather
or-
have their longer summer, and that was fine. I mean, we offered it, and
I was amazed.
But you
How
know, again,
unrealistic.
yeah.
Can you design a calendar?
Yeah,
I
so
mean,
some of this
you know,
goes
it's just
back
like,
to
you're
security
kidding.
against the behavior.
Right.
So that we weren't addressing that. You know, and there's one thing in terms of when you have kids engaged in learning. In
Right.
terms of what that feels like versus when you're trying to manage behaviors because you don't have a system in place. And all the more reason why we're recognizing right now, we haven't consistently rolled out, you know, a good plan code of conduct. Because we haven't, you know, our systems aren't ready for it.
Carrie brought it up about the emotional behaviors. I mean, we gotta have children in classroom engaged, working on things, and they can't be throwing stones and stuff. It's the disruptive environment, and that's what burns out our
Oh,
staff,
sure, all right, yeah,
indirectly or directly.
yeah.
well, you have a motion and a second to
Yeah.
bring the calendar forth.
Okay,
This is all gonna come up again, I bet.
From
Tuesday,
me, probably,
tomorrow night,
right? Because I
yeah.
talked to them.
By you, yeah.
Well, luckily, we were not gonna talk about this till January, right?
Oh, we're not.
correct.
We're not, yeah.
Mike has been doing really a wonderful job in terms of moving these items along.
Oh, yeah, I mean, I'm glad you brought that up because we didn't have our calendar last year, I think, even done until like
Oh.
April.
I know, yeah,
So-
exactly. Yeah.
And we'd like to get into the habit, someone brought it up, maybe it was Colin, maybe, I can't remember, but, it'd be nice if we could have a 2-year calendar so that people can plan.
Yeah, rolling
I think
2-year
Mike
calendar.
has been in a district where they've done that, correct?
Yes.
We
Yeah,
weren't
it-
able to do it this time, but that would be definitely something for the future that we
Yeah.
could.
But it doesn't prohibit us from possibly February or March going ahead with that second year calendar and starting to work on it, and who knows?
Yeah,
Which would be excellent.
Yeah. I mean,
Okay.
so maybe we'll get that done
Alright.
yet this year.
Okay, so the, just a couple information items here, the strength and
what about
speed.
the, no, what about the, study to work?
Oh, we're not there yet. We're
We're
still
not,
on.
oh, we're not.
Yeah.
Okay,
So the strength and speed program, that's the next one.
okay, I'm sorry.
And this was
The,
just an information item.
Yeah, we are very, very fortunate to have Aurora partnering with us relative to sports medicine and this strength and speed program. Aurora basically supports 2 FTEs in the athletic training arena for us. And that's just wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. They also have, for I think the past 7 years, I think JR said, they've financed the strength and speed program, which is, I don't think you could find a high school in the state of Wisconsin that doesn't have a strength and speeds program. It's all about bigger, faster, stronger, relative to primarily our athletes, but there's non-athletes, I believe, participate in the program. But here's why this is on the agenda for your information. And that's because Aurora recently, we were informed that they were going to have to eliminate the financing for the strength and speed program. And that financing right now is at about $28,000 per year. So we we met with JR. He's the person that oversees these sports medicine FTEs and oversees the person in finances relative to the strength and speed program. We met with him, and after a couple meetings with him, he decided that he could reduce one of his FTEs in the sports medicine area, take those finances, and pay for 50% of the strength and speed program still. So then Angela and I talked about, can we afford the other 50% and can we sustain it? And the other 50% would be for the rest of this year, approximately, I think it was about $7,000. And then going forward for a full year, it would be approximately about $14,000. And of course, we would budget for that for next year. But right now, the immediate need is $7,000. And of course, Angela can find that $7,000. So the good news is what Aurora is doing for us relative to sports medicine and the FTEs there. And they're still going to be able to help us with 50% of the speed and sports program. And we're going to match the other 50%. And we're going to be able to continue on status quo. So it's a good news item.
That's good.
So, and I didn't add this as an actionable item because we're not creating a new position and we're not asking for more money. Angela's going to, it's going to be within the budget.
Right.
So, okay, thanks, Mike.
Yeah.
So then the next one is the Skyward transition stipends. And I just signed a huge stack of them if we approve them tomorrow. So Angela, you want to talk a little bit about the Skyward and the transition?
Yeah, so we go live January 1st. So we've been working hard over the last year planning for Skyward, and part of the proposal
So, you know what that
to
is?
approve the transition to Skyward It's our new financial system, financial and human resources system. So Skyward will essentially touch every single employee in our school district. So from changing how we log time off and eventually timekeeping this spring, there are going to be a lot of changes. So the intent of the positions is to offer a small stipend to staff members in the district to help support at the building level, and offer a smooth stream of communication to the business office to help support human resources, and just to make it a smooth transition. That's really the main purpose of that. Business office and human resources also have had, along with their regular work, additional expensive hours of videos to watch for training and how to use Skyward. And just there's just extra work when you make a transition like this. So when we kind of looked at the rate and the pay for that, it was just to work with what we need. We need to compensate for overtime, like an equivalent of that. And then contracted teachers are paid the same for that, or staff that help along with that process.
And then Angela, just to add to that, in year 2, the stipends are reduced because the workload's reduced.
Correct.
And then in year 3, the stipends go away because we are cruising along with Skyward, right?
Yes. Yeah. The goal is to just build capacity, especially at the onstart of the program. And then next fall, the thought is that there's going to be, support for new staff members. And so that's where that comes in, and maybe additional training for other things that we do, but it will be phased out after the second year.
And then Angela, just another point to make too is you had built in the stipend information into your transition to Skyward originally, correct?
Correct. Yes. And it's built into the budget this year. That was all planned into that. So.
Okay. Any questions about those stipends, everybody? All right. And then thanks, Angela. The school to work program. This was another informational item.
Yeah, the school to work program. This is another, I think, good news story, is that the 2 individuals working in the program met with Angela and I probably 4, 5, 6 weeks ago. And they were seeking some additional hours for their clerical help. Their clerical person currently is scheduled for 30 hours a week, and the district will approve up to 35. So we asked them to give us some historical basis relative to where the program was, 3, 4, 5 years ago, and where the program is today. And we provided that information to you as a supplementary information here for this. And you can see how much this program has evolved and grown since the 16-17 school year. I mean, from 59 students to 172, youth apprenticeship 45 to 79. And I won't go through them all because hopefully you had a chance to look at them. So basically, we have approved them to go to 40 hours. They were doing 35, so it's only a 5 hours more per day, about $6,000 per year, and Angela has that in the budget. But I think the significant thing here is just to demonstrate to the committee and that sort of thing, and get it in the minutes on how much this program has evolved and grown, and the needs of the students that it's meeting. It's just a wonderful thing. So another good news thing.
Yeah, it's like we have 2 school systems.
Mm-hmm. This is another area that I super advocate for because I really think youth apprenticeship's important. One of the things though is obviously all apprenticeships are not created equally. I hang around with some high school kids, and I know for a fact that some of them are taking a youth apprenticeship but they're not really doing what we expect them to be doing. So just as something to be thinking about, again, along with our strategic plan and KPI, is absolutely, I don't want to take anything away from this program because I think it's excellent. I think though, let's figure out again how we can make sure that we have, I'm hoping this person can help too, you know, with just the accountability and making sure that these apprenticeships, that we are really giving what we say we are giving to our students.
Mhm.
I'll talk to that. So I'm a big supporter of obviously youth options and youth apprenticeship. However, I want to highlight how the industry or the employer is burdened with a lot of responsibility. We could somehow streamline that better, or we could, because right now it's up to the employer to pretty much do a lot of the
Instruction.
not just instruction, we need to work on this with our strategic plan, because it is very stressful for, you know, industry to have some of these students come in and then we don't have accountability, and then you have to rate them and you try to grade them, and there's some issues as well. So I'm a big supporter of it. However, we need to take the burden off the employer a little bit, or give them more support in having these students working for them. That's all I'll say at this point, but it's something that I'm very excited about. It's just we have to really look at that relationship and work on it.
We got the numbers. Let's just make it better.
We have the numbers, and I have reservations of why we have the numbers, but I won't speak to them right now publicly.
All right, so this was an informational as well, because we are not increasing, this person could go, actually what we're doing is we're increasing the person's hours. Is that correct?
That's correct. We're basically going from 35 to 40, so 5 more hours per week we're going to allocate to the clerical services for that program.
Okay. All right, and then the last item we have here is our personal day incentive for teachers.
Yes. Teachers currently have let me back this up. Teachers currently have 1 personal day, no sub-deduct, and 1 personal day with a sub-deduct. So we looked at that, and the personal day with no sub-deduct is they're both use it or lose it. So typically what happens in a school district when you have a personal day with no sub-deduct is come next April and May, people save their day in case they need it, but then come next April and May, they're like, doesn't look like I'm going to need it. I'm going to take a Monday off. I'm going to take a Friday off and have a 3-day weekend because it's use it or lose it. So we're going to try to incentivize the teachers and say a substitute teacher would cost $175 a day. If you choose to forfeit your personal day, we will pay you $175. So it's a means of trying to keep our teachers in the classroom more, and B, we struggle with subs, and next April and May, we just don't want a nightmare on our hands relative to not enough subs, too many people gone, that sort of thing. So
Pay them out. Good idea.
Yeah.
All right, perfect. Well, is there any other, there's nothing else on the agenda, so I'll look for a motion to adjourn.
Oh, I moved to adjourn.
Okay, make a second. So we will be adjourned here at 6:39 p.m.
All right, that's a lot of good stuff. Cool.
Thanks, Mike.
You should be adjourned.
good night, everybody.
Goodbye.
Good night.
Bye. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Angela.
For the last 2 years.
Yep.
So the enrollment programs went way through. No, I know kids went and said, hey,